speaking of the drone attack on Kabul as the United States was attempting their withdrawal of not only their forces, but all of the Americans in Afghanistan and folks who had been working with Americans over the past 20 years. In that drone strike, which the military had insisted was successful in taking out or preempting an attack on American forces, they killed 10 people, 7 of whom were children, and some reports suggest that it was basically an aid worker coming home to his family. I have not ever seen an admission like this, I think, for a long time.
Yeah, and the Trump administration, for that matter, rolled back the transparency provisions about drone strikes. So we don't even have a clear picture of what happened for the 4 years.
Certainly during the Trump years, and we also know that they rolled back the sort of any type of... they made it easier to kill civilians. Now, with that said, this is not unique to Biden or Trump. Obama also really was the one who really ramped up the drone strikes. Now, it was just a question of like the technology really essentially appearing in time for that to happen. Let's play this clip and we'll talk about, why I'm a little bit ambivalent about this admission, although, good.
Better admission than non-admission, but the act is still what it is.
Right.
Good afternoon. I'm here to brief the results of the investigation I directed following the report of civilian casualties from our strike in Kabul on 29 August. Having thoroughly reviewed the findings of the investigation and the supporting analysis by interagency partners, I am now convinced that as many as 10 civilians, including up to 7 children, were tragically killed in that strike. Moreover, we now assess that it is unlikely that the vehicle and those who died were associated with ISIS-K or were a direct threat to U.S. forces. I offer my profound condolences to the family and friends of those who were killed. This strike was taken in the earnest belief that it would prevent an imminent threat to our forces and the evacuees at the airport. But it was a mistake, and I offer my sincere apology. As the combatant commander, I am fully responsible for this strike and this tragic outcome.
Now, what we didn't do was to end that clip just before he offered his resignation.
Or here, take me and prosecute me.
I mean, there is at this point been no indication that anyone is even going to get a demerit as a function of this mistake. Now, I understand that they're really, really apologetic.
He broke out the profound condolences, Sam.
Right, and there is that was probably the punishment, and I am going to be held to account, and that's why I have to come out and say this. Now, it's a good thing that they're admitting this. It would have been very hard based upon all of the reporting on the ground, but there's a couple things that you should be aware of that seem fairly obvious, but do need to be said. The vast majority of drone strikes that take place are not at the epicenter of the news of the day, where you have, I don't know how many foreign reporters on the ground there to immediately challenge the military's perspective. The military, if they could make this type of mistake in Kabul, imagine the lack of resources that they have and the mistakes that they would make outside of Kabul. And I'm not just talking about in Afghanistan. We could be saying this about Yemen. We could be saying this about, Somalia. We could be saying this about Pakistan. We could be saying this about many, many countries. So it is far more likely that this episode was not the anomaly, but is probably generally more apt to be what the reality is of our drone strike program, that we end up killing more civilians than we do enemy combatants in the final analysis, and that the military is under virtually no pressure to come clean. And I would also add that I think even if we were to trust the military to reassess, right, to do their own investigation, say, you know, we got it wrong, I think the only reason why we're hearing about it in this instance, and that's assuming that they actually do come to the proper conclusion, you know, to an actual conclusion in other instances. The reason why we're hearing about it in this instance is because Joe Biden is under attack for withdrawing from Afghanistan. And my suspicion is that when they investigated this, and you already had these reports out there, and there was, you know, a lot of on the ground in the moment reporting by the New York Times, Joe Biden was like, you're going out there and you're saying this because this is a reason why we should be leaving Afghanistan. Now, that doesn't mean that Joe Biden's not doing the same thing in some other country. More than likely that we are. But in this instance, things just aligned. So people should understand the idea that we're hearing about this is the only thing that's unique about this situation.
Right. And also, of course, as you point out, that there were eyes on it to this degree. I'm sure they would still call this precision strike, precision strike, right? Even though they're just using cell phone data and there's no way to actually fundamentally know if it's precise in any way. The norm is probably that we kill the wrong people more often than not. And we were talking a little bit about this before the show. We saw a tweet from a Fox News reporter saying that the administration or that the military stands by the intelligence. We don't know if that's actually the quote. That was his characterization. And like you say, it's all an effort to make Biden look bad. So take that for what you will. But operationally, they do still stand by the intelligence because this doesn't cause a wholesale reevaluation of the drone program in and of itself.
Of course.
So they'll move on from this. We'll move forward. If they actually were serious and wanted to offer, what kind of condolences was it? The most
profound
condolences. What would be profound is to end the drone program.
I mean, let's put it this way. If we don't hear about the punishments that come from this abject failure, can you imagine how often we don't even hear about the abject failures? Right? I mean, this is their showpiece.
Yeah, because they just imply that, okay, we killed some civilians, but also maybe there was some intelligence. We got a good bad guy in there too. And
right.
Then, yeah.
Yes. Perhaps another wholesale reevaluation needs to be done on the nature of intelligence and how intelligent intelligence can be, and what that leads to in terms of state-sponsored murder.
Right. I mean, the bottom line is this doesn't work. It doesn't work. It didn't work in Afghanistan for 20 years. It didn't work. And the thing that drives it forward is just cash. That's basically it. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking to Amanda Montell. She's a linguist and host of the Sounds Like a Cult podcast. Her latest book, Cultish, The Language of Fanaticism. Folks, there's more of what you've just saw where that came from. That's if you hit the subscribe and like button. Thank you. Really, thank you.